Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Patrick Liu, and I'm going to be your host for the Diabetes Survival Guide show. I'm the founder of the Diabetes Management Group, where I am a fitness and wellness coach for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. And this show will be a way to share the phenomenal stories about people with all forms of diabetes, healthcare professionals who work with people with diabetes, health and wellness coaches who work with people in this population, and or caregivers and relatives with people with diabetes across the world. A little bit of a personal background for me as a show starter is I was diagnosed with prediabetes back in 2021 and made some modifications to my lifestyle and habits to successfully reverse it in 2022. However, that onset of me receiving prediabetes in 2021 triggered my memories of when my grandpa, who passed away when I was a sophomore in high school from kidney failure secondary to his type 2 diabetes, about the care that was misunderstood and not the greatest at that time. So I want to provide this show as a way to explore the different spectrums of diabetes and healthcare professionals sharing their tips of what they've seen helpful in working with folks with them, and then some things that weren't as helpful so that y'all can learn something. So thank you so much, and we'll get started with the disclaimers and the show.
Disclaimers. This show is not medical advice or a treatment plan and may contain sensitive and explicit content. It is intended for general education and demonstration purposes only. This content should not be used to self-diagnose or self-treat any health, medical, or physical conditions. Don't use this show to avoid going to your own healthcare professional or to replace the advice they give you. Consult with your healthcare provider before attempting anything you learned in this show. You agreed to identify and hold harmless the creators of this material for any and all losses, injury, or damages resulting from any and all claims that arise from your use or misuse of this show material. The creators and guests of this show make no representations about the accuracy or suitability of this content. Use these materials at your sole risk. Views and opinions are individual to the creators and guests of this show and do not represent any other opinions or entities and are not intended to offend anybody. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Diabetes Survival Guide show. My name is Patrick Liu, your host for this awesome episode. And today I am joined by the amazing Greg Jensen. He has been a huge mentor of mine in developing more of the mindset of what is self-sustainability, what's internal poverty, what is external poverty, and being able to take a step back and identify how can I improve myself so that I can better serve other people and provide the opportunities for them to learn how to become the best versions of themselves. And a quote that always resonates with me whenever I think of Greg and the awesome work that he's currently doing in Guatemala, it's whenever a person decides to feed somebody a fish, then that person isn't hungry for a day. However, if the person decides to teach that other person how to fish and provide for themselves, then they're able to be fed for the rest of their lives. And that embodiment is what I constantly think of. And I always think of Greg whenever that story arises or whenever I hear the term self-sustainability and becoming the best version of you. Greg, a little bit about him as well is he has had the awesome opportunity of being in the United States and then decided to go to Guatemala in order to found an organization called Cultiva. And I've actually mentioned Cultiva in some prior episodes about the awesome work that they're doing in educating the community members around there on how to create their own garden boxes, how to sustain it, and then reaping the rewards and benefits around there. And with that all being said, Greg, feel free to introduce yourself for the things that I haven't introduced about you and tell us about yourself and the story of founding Cultiva International.
Sure, fantastic. Thanks, Patrick. Glad to be on your podcast. This is way cool. Yeah, Patrick, what year you and I met? What year did you come down here? I'm trying to remember. Was that 2018 or 19?
Yeah, so I went down and did a service trip in Guatemala back in 2019, and I had the awesome opportunity to shadow some paramedics and firefighters, and then afterwards I went over to visit Greg and his team out in Panajachel in Guatemala, and just saw amazing scenery, beautiful opportunities over there, as well as just learning more about the cultural differences between there and what it's like in the United States. And particularly the thing that shocked me the most was probably the traffic laws. Like, it's like anything goes in that situation. People are trying to cut off emergency service vehicles. Every time there's the line that divides the lanes, there's like a motorcyclist that's on the side. And for me, I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. So that's probably one of the culture shocks that I saw over there compared to there. But yeah.
Well, we have the same laws. It's just the enforcement of the laws is different than in the United
Oh,
States.
really? Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah,
too much of that then. You learn
yeah,
something new every
yeah,
day.
yeah. Well, my name is Greg Jensen. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Cultiva International. I also run a business called Cultivate Institute, and I live full time in Guatemala. And I moved down here in 2011. So coming up on 12 years living in Guatemala. Moved down here. I was married at the time, and we moved down with our four little boys with the idea of having an adventure, doing something different, having our kids learn Spanish. And we started volunteering with some organizations. That's kind of what we thought we would do. And things just kind of went a different direction that was never anticipated. I never thought we would start Cultiva International or anything like that. But what happened is we were living down here and seeing poverty and seeing people in need, seeing kids that didn't have good nutrition, and now having kids and seeing that hit home. And we learned that Guatemala was the sixth highest chronically malnourished country in the world.
Dang.
And
Whoa.
actually, tying this in with diabetes, I learned later too that because of chronic malnutrition, many indigenous Mayans are pre-diabetic or diabetic, and that's directly from their diet, and a lot of times directly because they were chronically malnourished. So we started volunteering with an organization a little bit, and what we saw, quick story, was they were doing a lot of handouts basically. People, they just had a wrong definition of what poverty was, and I didn't understand it at the time either. But people were lining up, and they would hand out food baskets, and people would have food for a week, and it was good, it was nice, it was fun. But I just wondered, is this really making a difference? Because it seems like we're just putting a band-aid on the problem, because then when the food runs out, they just have to get back in line and do that again. And it seemed like it was creating dependence, and a lot of the people getting the food weren't the people that really needed the food. And so this was started in 2011. So over 2012 and 2013, we spent a lot of time just experimenting and trying things out and trying to do something different. We actually had a lot of failures. And so I like the phrase failing forward. And that happened because we thought, oh, I had done a lot of studying about gardening. I knew about square foot gardening. And so we were already gardening and raising chickens. We had rabbits while we were here in Guatemala. And we're going to be better than this, kind of your fish example. Instead of just giving people food, we're going to give, and I'm using these words super specifically, we're going to give them a garden. And so we found this family, and we went there and we installed this garden, and we basically wanted our kids to have the experience. And so we went in and did it and left and said, here you go, you got a garden. And we went back 6 weeks later. Oh, I wonder, let's go see all the vegetables that are growing. And as you can imagine, there was not this lush garden. It was lush, it was just full of weeds. So complete failure. There's no food being grown in this garden. And it'd be easy to just say, oh, the family they didn't do their job. It's their fault. But in reality, I take full responsibility. It's totally my fault. And why is that? Why is it my fault? What we learned later was there's 4 steps in trying to get involved with humanitarian work or international development, and how to have this be successful. You could say, oh, gardens don't work. That's not a good way that people can help themselves. But in reality, it's a great way. We just didn't do a good job. So the steps are, first, you have to ask and listen and see what people need. You can't just assume, oh, God, this is a great idea. This would be awesome. I'm going to go to such and such a country and do this. How do we know? We don't know the culture. We don't know the language. We don't know what people need. So you have to ask what people need and then listen. And the second thing is you have to have this huge education component. You've got to teach, educate, inspire, motivate, so that people really get it and want to do it. Want to do it on their own. Third, we have to require something from them. In our case, we require time and materials that they help do with Cultiva, and I'll explain that in a second. And then the fourth one is follow up, tons and tons of follow up. So had we done those steps with this family, but it would been a way better chance that they would have been successful with that garden. And so we just started applying that as we went along. And so eventually Cultiva came to be, and Cultiva teaches classes and mentors and trains people so that they can lift themselves out of poverty. We teach them all these things about nutrition and how to plant a garden and how to take care of it and how to harvest it and how to cook those vegetables and things to make it part of their diet so they can improve their family's nutrition and help lift themselves out of poverty. We're mentoring, teaching, motivating, we're empowering them so that they can do it on their own. And our focus, and you already alluded to this, is focusing on what poverty really is. And if you want, do you want me to explain that
Go for it.
quickly
Yeah.
here? Because
I kept it bare
I think it's
bones so that you
powerful.
could explain the story. I can't do it as much justice as you can.
It's really important. This was on a study by the World Bank, and this was a little while ago, but they were looking at the continent of Africa, and they looked over the prior 40 years. And basically, and I forget the number, but there's a gigantic sum of money. I mean, like in the hundreds of billions, as I recall, but tons of money had been invested in Africa, donated to Africa with the idea of ending poverty. Well, with a few little successes here and there, basically none of it helped. The numbers were just as bad. So it was, let's step back and figure out what are we missing here. So there was a study about poverty. So there were two parts of the study. The first part is they went and interviewed people just like us living in the developed world and asked us the question, what does poverty look like to you? And we invariably come up with things like, oh, poverty is lack of food, water, shelter, money, medicine. Those are all physical, tangible things. In reality, that's not really what poverty is. That's not the root of poverty, the root problem of poverty. Those are symptoms of poverty, but not really poverty. So I call that external poverty. So it is part of poverty, but I call that external. The second part of the study was they went and interviewed over 6,000 people in over 60 countries, people who actually live in poverty. And they asked them the same question: what is poverty to you? They didn't mention the same things. How did they answer? They mentioned things like feelings of shame, embarrassment, sadness, despair, hopelessness. What do those things have in common? Those are on the inside, those are emotional, right? Psychological, maybe spiritual. So I call that internal poverty. You can have one or the other, you can have both, but that's internal. Now, why is this important? It's important for two reasons. Number one, who is it that's going to these countries and setting up nonprofits and organizations and trying to help people get out of poverty? It's typically people from the developed world going with our definition of poverty, which is the external definition. So it makes sense that this organization was going to Guatemala and saying, hey, we understand, gosh, nutrition problem here, poverty, lack of food. All right, we'll just get money, buy food, and give you food. That doesn't help. If we want to empower somebody, we have to help them do it on their own. If we're just giving it to them, not only is this not helping the problem, it's actually making it worse. It could be making the internal poverty worse. Now, as a quick aside, there is a time when you do go hand out food and water and shelter, and that's when there's like a natural disaster. If there's an acute crisis, yes, we rush out and we hand stuff out and we get people back on their feet, and then we're done. But in a chronic poverty, chronic nutrition situation, it has to be a totally different type of a solution, right? It has to be, we can't just be handing stuff out. We've got to be teaching and helping. The second reason this is super important is once you understand what poverty really is, you realize you don't have to be in external poverty to have internal poverty. You realize that any of us, all of us living on this planet, have some type of internal poverty, or we have had, or we know somebody who is, or we will have. There's people around us, and maybe we're not in complete internal poverty, but maybe there's an aspect, right? Maybe we have a relationship that's suffering from internal poverty. And so once we realize this, we realize we're really all the same. And so these countries don't need us to go there and get people out of external poverty. They can do it on their own. If anything, we can go and be educated and connect with them, and maybe that can be something that helps them with their internal poverty, and it helps us with ours. And so with that focus, that's what Cultiva does. Yes, we're helping people with external poverty by teaching them nutrition and gardening and helping them be healthier. But the real focus is mentoring and teaching them so they can do this on their own and get that confidence and empower them. Because if we just address the external and not the internal, we're not really solving anything. If we really want poverty to go away, if we really want it to change, it has to be generational, it has to be super impactful. And so I think it's exciting to see somebody growing food and adding that to their diet. I think it's more exciting to see kids watching their parents grow the food and get excited and see that they're doing better in life and they're happier and the smile is different and they're less hopeless and they're doing it on their own. The parents are having this awesome experience of lifting themselves out of internal poverty. But I think then they're preventing their children, right? They're breaking that cycle. We have to break the cycle somehow. And so I'm applying it with Cultiva with these people with chronic malnutrition. But hopefully you and hopefully your listeners are thinking like, oh, that applies in my life. That applies in this relationship. That applies in my job and anything. And so if you think about those 4 steps and you understand what poverty really is, it really makes sense and really clicks. And I think we all need to understand that and adjust how we do things.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And before we continue with the rest of this show, I wanted to let y'all know, please feel free to give this podcast a 5-star rating if you like it, share it with other folks that you think it'd be beneficial for. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe and follow to the Diabetes Management Group for awesome tips to manage your type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. And let's get back to the show.
Yeah, that's so awesome. We're getting a ton of thoughts that are probing from it. Now, for those who are listening, you may be wondering if, wow, that was a really solid, like, elucidating story, especially with the surveys that were conducted in Africa to try and figure out what exactly is poverty. And then Greg being able to really take it to the next level and defining it into the external poverty and that internal poverty. And then being able to figure out, instead of coming in to provide the mission that one has and implementing it in the community, instead it's actually getting into that community and figuring out what is that community's need, what are they currently facing, and what do they want. And by figuring out what they want, then figuring out how can we collaborate and work with each other to accomplish that goal of getting into a state where there is more of that abundance and becoming that family that's able to break that generational mindset of, oh, we're in a broke situation and we'll always be in a broke situation, to now it's what if we're able to uplift and get ourselves out of this situation by learning how to take care of ourselves. And not only that, but also setting a huge example for our children who are watching us, or for the people who are surrounding us and seeing that we're having this abundance and learning that just a moment ago, we were also suffering together, to the point now we were able to take full responsibility and accountability, saying, hey, it's up to me to take care of myself. And as Greg mentioned, for the failing forwards, he took full responsibility of those teachings in order to figure out how can I better improve my mission and constructing it in a way that best serves the people that I'm wanting to work with and serve, to the point where now they have that stronger foundation and it's rebuilt to the point where people are getting themselves out of that generational gap and that generational poverty to being that first person in their family now, and then inspiring their young ones to become that first generation now that has that wealth and that abundance internally. And then I feel, from my perspective, once one has that internal wealth and that security and that self-sustainability, then it will project outwards externally. And that's get so many. I just feel so awesome after hearing all that stuff.
It makes sense, right? If somebody's trying to like what you're doing, coaching somebody, helping people and teaching them. And if we're just talking about the physical things, we're just talking about the diet, the exercise, the lifestyle things, all that needs to be done. But there's a whole mindset that's got to happen too. There's got to be a whole kind of mental, internal side that goes along with that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, gosh, we're making lifestyle changes like that. Sometimes we can beat ourselves up even more. We can create some internal poverty, even though we might be looking better, feeling better, health is good, but if mental health is down, gosh, like what's the overall? Is it net positive? I don't even know.
Yeah, I
We've
totally
got to
agree
be
with
doing
that.
both, in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for those who haven't tuned in for the first episode, I actually mentioned the struggles that I've had with mental health, where I've contemplated, crap, this world just, I don't feel like I belong in this world, to the point where I have contemplated considering like taking my own life in those certain situations, just because my own internal poverty was at that point where it's so low. Then I decided, you know what? I'm going to take full responsibility for myself and figure out, why am I feeling this type of way? Like I've been blaming it on this world for so many years, and what if instead I can take that upon myself, where I can then figure out what can I do to take care of myself. And when I started reaching out to some coaches, whether that would be for my business, for my life, and all those other factors, it then comes back into figuring out what's your why, what's your reasoning behind it. And then once I actually deconstructed those and figuring out that, wow, I was filled in an environment where I was constantly telling myself that I didn't deserve the health, the prosperity, that nutrition, that served as a block from preventing me from actually taking that step forward to take care of myself. Or whenever I started to take care of myself, I was kicking myself in the foot and tripping myself over and over again, because I was saying, I don't deserve this because of X, Y, and Z things, just these things that happened to me in the past that I was limiting myself from that. And now it's gone to the point where I have gotten the support that I needed, really done that deep dive and that internal work myself to understand that, no, I do deserve this. I do belong here, that I do have these gifts that I can then serve and work with other people, like learn what their stories are and figure out how can we be of service to collaborate with each other to achieve our goal that we have, and build up that foundation that we're wanting to have to then address all of the chronic issues that we have going on. And from my background, when I was diagnosed with prediabetes back in 2021, and having flashbacks of my grandfather passing away from his type 2 diabetes when I was a sophomore in high school, in those moments, like there was a lot of suffering at that moment. And then when I took it upon myself to use those as learnings to then be able to reverse my diagnosis in 2022, I figured, wow, that it clicked. Like by being able to accept that I am worthy and deserving of a better life, and that I can use the blessings of my new better life to serve others, that's when I start having more of that abundance mindset. And then I'm getting all these flashbacks of the service trips that I've attended in the past. And one of the notable ones was when I went to Cultiva, and just seeing those families when we worked with them and growing and seeing them develop to become the best individuals that they can be, that I'm just like, okay, I know I'm heading in the right direction. Now let's take the teachings that I've learned to then serve other people. And hence the diabetes management group was formed back in earlier this year. And now this show, this purpose, of course, is to then share other individuals who have these awesome learnings to serve other folks.
Fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to ask is, what was the biggest learning lessons that you've had when working with the participants of Cultiva?
Yeah, good question. The big one, which we've already talked about, was the whole internal external poverty, because that came after we were already kind of at the beginning. That was huge. Those 4 steps that I talked about earlier, that was super impactful. I mean, even as we went on, I think we just always, I think what I've learned is, just when we think we've got it figured out, there's something else. There's something else to learn. Like I remember at the beginning, we were like, we just made this assumption, like if they had the vegetables, then they would like just immediately integrate them into their diet. So we were so focused on what's the best methods, how do we grow this, how do we teach it, get it water, get everything harvested, take care of insects and all that. And then so we thought we were kind of done, like the whole program was complete. And then we realized they knew what these vegetables were. It wasn't like it was something foreign to them, like they were something new. It just wasn't part of their lifestyle, it wasn't part of their diet. And so we realized, oh shoot, we've got to like go take another step. And we did some taste testing and like recipes and like showing, trying things out. So the lesson there was like always be looking for, just kind of be vigilant in seeing how things are going, and always be following up and always checking, because we've continued to just adapt and modify little things, and we still do over there. It's just how we do the program. And so I think that's the big lesson. It's easy to just say we got it and just get stuck in a way of doing things. But facts change and science changes sometimes. Things we thought was healthy before is not now. Things we thought were in. So just kind of constantly watching and seeing what's changing, what's new, and what's going to work for the participants.
Awesome. I really love it, especially the consistent follow-up and staying up to date of what is out there for the sciences of like the certain foods that are out there that then we realize, oh, actually this wasn't as good as we thought it was. And also instilling upon them of how can we start integrating this new thing that was foreign, like we've seen it, but it wasn't actually in front of our plates to then start taste testing and sampling through. I'm sure you've probably had some wonderful dishes and some other dishes that may have kicked up the palate a little bit.
I was like, what do we do with this kale? Or not kale, it was chard. And then we found out they like to dip it in, beat an egg and dip the chard in the egg and then fry it. So it's like, I was like, oh, that's doesn't really sound that great to me, but like if they'll eat it, great. And a lot of people said like, why don't you like we put cabbage in these boxes. Cabbage doesn't have a whole lot of nutritional value. And so I remember some people said, well, you should give them this vegetable, that'd be better. It's like they're not gonna eat that vegetable, but they'll eat the cabbage. So are we gonna grow stuff that's super healthy that they're not gonna eat, or are we gonna grow stuff that's maybe a little less healthy? And again, there's other things that are super healthy, but they'll eat it. They can't assume best for others.
Yeah.
You gotta see what works.
Yeah, I totally love that too. Right now, I'm in for some of the videos that I've been posting on my social media accounts, specifically on some Facebook and on YouTube. Some people are saying, oh, you got to go with a carnivore diet and no carbs or like low carbs, and that'll cure your type 2 diabetes. When there's some studies that's like starting to show that, hey, I think we're placing too much of an emphasis on the A1C markers, which is the hallmark sign for someone to say whether they have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes or not. But what about the other factors? Like, what are your thyroid hormones looking like? Like, what is your testosterone and your other sex hormones looking like? Because sure, if that goes down, but if these other markers gets to a not so great state, whether it's overproduction or lower production, then of course it's like you took one step forward, but now you took two steps back. So for me, it's what works best for the individual that's in front of me, and how can we educate them on utilizing the tools that we've shown them. And I think it's similar to the stories that you've shared and figuring out some people may not want to eat the kale, and if they'll eat the cabbage, then the cabbage is the next best alternative for them.
Totally.
And then the next thing I wanted to ask is if you were to share one piece of advice for people interested in building their own garden box to improve their health and lifestyle habits, what would it be?
Oh, just do it. People get so hung up on like the technical sides of things like that with gardening, but I would container gardening or box gardening, square foot gardening in this case is so much easier for people that want to get started in gardening. You don't have to be worrying about your soil, looking at pH or what kind of condition it's in. You just need a space. You can put it right on concrete. You just need a space to have a box, and it doesn't have to even be that technical. If you start studying about this, you're like, oh my goodness, I got to do this and that. But we've learned in Guatemala, we've adapted lots of things and it works. And so really just trial and error. But yeah, there is an investment because you got to get wood or some other thing that you're going to plant in. You got to have this grid on there, and you're not just going to grab dirt and throw it in the box. And so there's an investment up front. But man, once you've made that investment specifically with that type of gardening, so much easier. You can grow way more food in a much smaller space, like 20% of the space. Way less work. It doesn't track lots of weeds or anything like that, and way less water. And so for people that are sensitive to that, or they don't have a lot of water in their area, they don't have to be watering a whole gigantic area. You're literally just watering the plants that are right in that little space. Yeah. I don't know. It was kind of a long answer, but yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Nah, essentially, get started, just do it. And then there's probably a variety of resources that are out there too for people to look up and check them out. So, yeah.
It would be pretty easy. And someone says, oh, I don't have a green thumb. I don't know. Anyone does. I don't think that's like something that comes in your genetics or anything. I think it's just if you have the intention to want to learn it and do it, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's the whole that perfectionist mindset that blocks people from really going all in to try new things or new hobbies or something that can improve their lives. They're like, oh crap, I have to invest in, like, let's say if someone wants to learn how to run, for example, they're thinking, crap, I got to get like 5 pairs of new shoes. I got to get this heart rate monitor. I got to get this watch. I got to get this X, Y, and Z things. When in reality, it's like, you could just wear your shoes and just do a walk jog. And that doesn't cost any money. Just something little and one small thing to the point where then they are able to do what they can with it. And sometimes it could be, all right, maybe the first step is just spending 30 minutes looking up at what a garden box is if someone doesn't know what that is. And then maybe 30 minutes another day of what seeds that they could plant inside a garden box. And then just gradually build upon that until they're ready to do the thing and get in that garden box to then have a good time with it too.
Totally. Totally.
All right. And then the fun question that I like to ask all the guests who come onto this podcast is, what is your zombie apocalypse survival plan?
Serious answer?
Yeah.
Serious answer. I'd just be back. Right now, I live in Guatemala City, so I'm in a big city. But I would just head right back out to the mountains where Cultiva's working, and live there. Yeah, there's space, there's land. I would probably be with our team there, growing food, raising food. That would be the important thing. Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. Y'all, if you haven't had the chance to, of course, check out Cultiva and what the environment looks like over there, like, honestly speaking, they can 100% survive a zombie apocalypse being out there, in my opinion. Like, they got food, they got people, they got resources, and they are the masters of self-sustainability that they can survive anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can grow anything here and you can do it year round. And that's pretty appealing.
All right. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining and being a guest on our show. How can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, if people are interested in supporting what we do with Cultiva, you can go to cultivainternational.org. Or if people are interested in organizing some type of a trip or a retreat in collaboration with Cultiva here in Guatemala, you can go to cultivateinstitute.org. So Cultiva International and Cultivate Institute. And of course, we have the social media handles and things like that. But yeah, those are the websites, and you can get in touch with us that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. And for those who haven't seen, I'm actually wearing my Cultiva shirt too in support.
Hey, right on.
Yeah.
Way to
For this
represent. Nice
episode
job,
and
Patrick.
everything. I figured, oh my goodness, I can't wait to bust out this shirt and represent.
That's cool.
All right. I'll leave the links and everything below for y'all to connect with Greg and the Cultiva team. And as always, y'all, we'll see you in the next episode, and just make one small step towards improving your health. And if you want to reach out to me as well to get started with your lifestyle, health, and wellness journey and start addressing that internal poverty, feel free to reach out. And we're currently accepting clients, and we're happy to support. So see y'all in the next episode.